Welcome back to Gears 5. Alright,
so... We're talking about Jeopardy.
Well, we made everyone hurt already, so how about we jump back in time and make them hurt again? We'll kill the other one. Why not?
Get it? She said you've made your choice.
What Jova raised is still a good point. Why not trying to aim for her head?
Again, at least have that be shown up as a third option, but no.
Even as a game over type 1 which says, oh, that kills both of them and then kills you.
Dead. Yeah, that was dead. And again, he was just a nothing character, so I'm sorry, I can't bring myself to care, to be honest with you.
Like, damn, that's terrible, but...
Okay,
it is.
I should be looking forward to Faz's reaction, but I'm mostly curious to what Marco's reaction.
Okay. I can't.
It must have said what?
Yeah, like
I said,
this is another frustrating thing about it. It really does feel like they were planning for it to be JD, because don't get me wrong, I like Del. Well, okay, like is a bit of a strong word. I tolerate Del just fine as a character, but man, it really doesn't feel like, again, he arguably has less impact. That said, if he's the one who dies, congrats, you killed the token black character of the new cast. Again, and also with little to no fanfare.
I can imagine what happened on the motion capture set of this. By the way, Laura, could you do that scene again, but just replace JD with the other guy?
Yeah, basically.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to say... Hold on.
Sorry.
I honestly get the feeling that a lot of the motion capture for that cutscene is probably the same one.
Yeah, I was about to mention. I wonder if some of the footage was recycled.
I don't know, either way. Well, okay. Well, to be fair, too, the lines are different. She mentions, Del was my friend too, and blah blah. She mentions him by JD.
The lines are different, but the movements seem to be the same.
And honestly, I feel like that just makes it all the more lazy, because again, I feel like there should be some notable differences at the very least.
Gentlemen, there is a bit of a difference. JD has a beard and the other guy doesn't, so
it just feels so different.
The facial hair is from the opposite side of the other character groups. I don't get it.
It feels disrespectful to the characters, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not like they're in our favor. Look, I mean, it's not like we've been respecting the hell out of these characters because they haven't really earned our respect, but if you were trying to get us to respect them now, you kind of just made things even worse. Now, yes, there are some slight differences, but damn, like even Mass Effect 3 would be laughing at how similar these endings are. Jesus. And you done screwed up when you are
Mass Effect
the original Mass Effect 3 endings.
Okay, so here's the big difference, Jova. People were actually up in arms with Mass Effect 3's ending. Remember what we said. No one talks about Gears 5.
No. In fact, Jova, now that I think about it, here's a better idea since you brought up Faz earlier about him. Another good idea that could have done. Okay, you want to have Queen Reyna kill somebody? Here's an idea. Instead of killing Liz at the beginning of the game, have her be a recurring character throughout the entire game, so we can actually get to know her a bit more, and then she's the one who... That way you get to continue the Carmine running gag, and still reach that Queen Reyna means business effect that you want. There you go. Problem solved.
Sure, I mean, technically we've never had a Carmine die at the end game. At most it was one who made it, I'd say, close to the mid game, but not entirely at the mid game, but yeah, still though. Yeah, it would have been something new and interesting.
Again, I literally just pulled this out of my ass. I'm not even kidding. It literally just came up to me.
I just really don't get it though. Of all the ways they could have pulled off a character sacrifice, it feels like one of the lamest and most... Well, again, it feels like such a blatantly stupid way that would have been easy to avoid. Like, it feels like such a rookie mistake here.
What makes it so frustrating, Jova, is the fact that, like, as the both of us mentioned, Jova, they have two perfectly serviceable options to reach their desired effect, Foz and Liz, and they decide to ignore those two and go for the stupidest one. Or the two stupidest ones.
These guys are supposed to be part of the new main cast, and again, that's not to say that they couldn't have died, but again, the way they die is so lame. Like I've asked, what makes Reyna so special that we couldn't have just tried to knife her? Like, again, Myrna, whenever we confronted her so much, she was riding a flipping mount that could burn us alive, so it made sense that we didn't take a run right there and then. All Reyna has going for her is the tentacles that she walks on. That's it, really. Like, honestly, I feel like she could easily have been taken down with the Hammer of Dawn, but no, she's this new awesome villain. Because the writer said so.
So yeah, one of the differences, of course, is the different banter during this particular bit.
Which is, a start.
Well, they would have to. It would make no sense for the banter to be copy-pasted from Dell's.
Would you have been surprised if they just copied the same dialogue, just given
Hey, why are you calling me Dell?
What?
Oh yeah, that's right. You're alive in this version.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it was exactly the same, I could imagine a conversation like that happening. Jake, why are you calling me Dell? He's dead.
So what you're saying, Dwibs, is J. Dick lives. All right, let's skip to the actual scene. Yeah.
Now let's see Marcus's reaction.
I actually do. To be fair, I actually do enjoy how they handle the JD version of the scene.
Oh, it's JD who gets distraught and Marcus has to comfort him.
Which makes sense. Yes, finally. So,
I mean, you didn't really know him that well, but yeah.
No. Actually, Dwibs, JD did know Del very well.
You don't understand that.
So, Pedro, I don't know if we asked you this before, but which of the two outcomes do you prefer, Del or JD surviving?
in terms of basic scenes in a vacuum, I actually do think this scene is superior to the Del one. Just because, so I will say, I guess this one.
So I take it
you get some good character development from Marcus.
Again, it's a shame that it has to be at the expense of
sure.
Del.
Oh, definitely,
And then
definitely.
there's this.
And there you go. So this time it's Del that died. And Fuzza's reaction is the same, basically copy pasted.
Like,
I mean, fair enough, I guess. I don't think he needed that much of a change.
No, that's the thing, Teo. My issue is that, remember, both Del and Foz hated each other at the beginning of the game, and the game didn't really convince me that they are now suddenly buddies, really, to earn that reaction.
They're still comrades.
It's still a casualty on the battlefield. Like, again, Marcus and the others cared about each Carmine who died, so...
Yeah.
Well, who died?
Not on this timeline.
Wasn't there some sort of anime that kind of did this thing where it was like all the timelines and they're like
sorry, you have to be more specific. What?
Yeah, you have to narrow that one down.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's it.
The
rest of the cutscene is the same too, so I just cut to the credits really.
Sure.
All right, and that was Gears 5.
Hooray!
Not even Gears of War 5. Just
also,
Gears 5.
Also,
if you want to go fast, go again with that stupid quote.
I don't even understand.
Sonic, go away. This is not your game.
As for what you were saying, Jova, Jova, think about this. It wouldn't be a Coalition Gears game if it didn't have lameness in it. So, I guess it fits. All right, Dwebs, your thoughts on this epic action game, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's not an epic one. It's from the Coalition, not Epic Games.
True. Carry on.
I mean, it is an action game, though. I mean, there's plenty of action in it. I will agree with that. Not much really I can say about this story, to be honest. I mean, it has a few decent ideas, but the main issue is that it either doesn't go anywhere with those decent ideas, or the other ones are just at best. Like, I wonder how they're going to continue. If they make a Gear 6 and it carries on from earlier, I wonder if it will carry your save over, so it will let you,
It's perfect.
One from,
Again, so we have thrown a couple of suggestions. They could either A, provide, like a scenario where the person who dies comes back, therefore they still have like the voice actors in the mocap and there is like a potential conflict onto it. Or B, we're gonna go the Telltale route and kill whoever survived in the beginning of the next game.
Yeah, I could see them very much doing that to save on the budget. In which case, well, good, you finished the job.
Ugh. But besides from that, really, there's not really a whole lot I can say that we haven't already talked about. I wonder. I mean, sometimes I do kind of respect some story sometimes for having a sudden protagonist switch if it's done well. Unfortunately, this isn't one of those times. I mean, to be fair, JD wasn't exactly the most charismatic protagonist in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess replacing him with Kait, there wasn't that much of a trade-off. They're both lacking in personality for the most part.
What was so hard about making him just, a good character instead of what they did? And that's the thing, Kait has her own issues, and honestly, I'm gonna argue that Kait's a weaker main protagonist than JD. I'll go more on that in my final thoughts, though.
Because so far, the only change I've seen from JD is that he's not that much of a dick after the time skip, and he has a beard. Like, he's really tried desperately to be that much like his dad that he's grown the beard now.
I'm actually curious, Pedro, on which circumstance you're going to choose if Gear 6 gives us the choice to choose if you...
Again, I guess it depends ultimately on what the game does with these,
We're just gonna wait and see what comes of it. Carry on, this.
Again, imagine if they actually have some magical rejuvenation juice that brings back whoever died back to life.
Anyway,
I will telling more in a sense of whoever died becomes like a servant of the locals, like the next Ram or something.
But
I know. Go on.
Anyway, I think the music itself is a bit better than the last game. Not by a whole lot, but still, my guess is that maybe Ramajawadi is a very busy guy, so I can imagine maybe his time was split between the two, between this and what little was left of Game of Thrones by the point of the development of the game, among other things. I mean, it looks very good, at least. Graphic fidelity wise.
Yeah, this thing is clearly pushing my Xbox One to the limit as we suffer the slowdown.
yeah. As like I said before, when I played this on my Series S, I didn't really encounter those kinds of issues.
Well, obviously, your console's much more powerful.
But overall, unfortunately, this game is just kind of mediocre. It does have a few. It has a few good things and a few really bad things, but they just kind of cancel each other out, really. I mean, me personally, when it comes to like games that have like really bad reception on Twitter, but just kind of there everywhere else, I tend to always side with the meh side of the argument. Like, I certainly don't see the don't see what people really, really love about this game. But on the other hand, I also don't really see why this is like the worst thing ever.
Well, I guess this game is perfect for you because it didn't really have a presence for Twitter in that regard.
Not really. Most people haven't even bothered with this thing.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's the perfect scenario for you, Dwibs.
Yeah. I can judge something about having to have the really hyperbolic Twitter comments hounding my brain.
So, how do you feel now with this project, where you can pretty much judge it for yourself?
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen worse. No, I'm pretty sure there was worse in 2019.
Oh, don't.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Look. This is a bad game, but it is by no means like the crowning creme de la creme of crap.
Not really, no.
Yeah, I mean, what was
We had Terminator Dark Fate.
Also, Alana Pierce played NPCs in this game.
Also, Joe, I think we should maybe compare this to other video games. Like, were there any like really critically panned stuff of 2019?
Okay, video game
Pokemon Sword and Shield count?
No,
not necessarily. The controversies surrounding that were not strictly on what the game contained, more like what was lacking of it.
and it's not like it stopped the game from being at least a proper experience, like this game. But yeah,
I'll get back to that on later on. Carry on, Dweebs.
But yeah, overall, it's just kind of average, and it doesn't really stick out one way or the other, which I guess makes it better than Gears Judgment. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I said it. This game has a better plot than Gears of War Judgment.
I mean, I can see.
That's still my pick for the worst.
Yeah, I was about to also mention it in my thoughts, but
oh yeah, Taylor agrees with you anyway. So
I mean, and look, I don't agree, but I can see where you're coming from, so I won't argue. That.
Yeah. I mean, the worst I've seen from this game is that people are bland, and there's been stuff done here that's been done in other games in the series and done better. But at least it's better than the world's dumbest trial. Constant repetition.
I have no idea which one you're talking about. Is that 2 or 4?
no, it's
Judgment.
Judgment. Judgment was the Gears of War spin-off game that came out in 2013 on the Xbox 360.
Where are you mentioning one of the previous parts, Dej?
Okay.
And in terms of games with a female lead character, Kait's nothing really special, but again, I think some of the controversy surrounding her was a bit overblown.
Do you feel that she's a better main protagonist than JD?
Well, I mean, the game certainly seems to try more with her than JD.
But do you actually feel like she's a stronger one?
What do you think?
Again, not really. I mean, I've definitely seen better, but I've also seen worse.
So
I mean, at least she doesn't club JD to death with a golf club.
Wait, by that,
not voiced by Troy Baker. So
well, yeah, by that logic, it should be she should be clubbing Marcus to death.
Yeah. I mean, and even then, the whole golf clubbing thing. Yeah. But anyway, back to this game. I'm not going to go on a Last of Us 2, man. I've already did enough of that. But yeah, overall, it's just kind of there. Although I am interested in seeing what Tactics is like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially considering that's going to be the first full game in the series to have no involvement from Tom Bissell whatsoever. I mean, I'm not saying I hate the guy. I've read The Disaster Artist. I mean, yeah, I know it was a book co-written by Greg Sestero, but he had to have at least done something in it to get a co-writing credit. So I don't think he's a bad writer. He's just not suited for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like is there another? It's like I'm pretty sure there are other series where they have a writer involved who generally does good work, but just isn't suited for that series that they're on.
Horribly miscast.
There's plenty of cases like that.
Well, maybe mishired. Maybe since.
Well, I can give you one, Dibs. I can give you one. Once, back in the day, when Sony's Japan studio back on the PS3, they thought it was a good idea to have Hino write a Mitsuno-style JRPG, even though that's not his style of writing at all, aka a politically driven story, basically.
Matsuno.
Was this before?
Sorry, Matsuno. You're right. Sorry, I misspoke.
Was this before or after his deal with the Gundam stuff?
Yeah, there was that Gundam series level 5 did, and I thought that was awful.
And again, from what I played, the White Knight Chronicles, I don't even think that's really bad in terms of writing, to be honest.
Well, let's just say writers have their comfort zone, and while I'm not against them trying to leave it every now and again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And how we deal from it really depends. But anyway, we'll probably have a discussion about some of the when we get to a game that's like that. But yeah, Gears 5. Yeah.
Alright.
Anyway, Dweebs, hold on. What was the question that you mentioned about a game in 2019 that had the same, bad beat down or, controversy surrounding it?
Games that were like far worse than this, I mean.
Okay, Crackdown 3 might be a good contender, February 15.
Oh yeah, the glitches game.
Crackdown 3 was
that was also Microsoft, wasn't
it? It was. Crackdown 3 is a broken mess.
Okay, well, technically functioning on its own, there was also the Mario & Luigi Bowser Insane Story remake over the 3DS that was bad, but nobody bought and nobody cared about.
It wasn't bad.
No, that's what I say.
It was one of the least selling Mario games to date.
But again,
it was automatically equal to bad.
Jova has a point. But anyway, that's pretty much it.
Alright, Jova, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, go on.
It's a bad game. The multiplayer sucks and is rife with microtransactions and all manner of controversies. The actual updates, not that well. The single-player campaign, while it functions, is not that good a time. And yeah, I will say that this is, to me, the worst Gears story we've gotten. Mind you, all the Gears stories past Gears 3, they all have their own quirks that you could use to argue them each being the worst. But for this one being the worst here, I feel like this one is the one that tries to be Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Like, it tried to fix the issues that Gears 4 raised, but arguably made things even worse. Which I'd argue is a pretty cardinal sin in that regard. So, they replaced JD and pretty much kicked him down a peg because, well, they didn't do that good a job with him in Gears 4, so let's place all the blame on the character, and hey, here's even an option to kill him if you want. It just feels lame. And Kait is not a better protagonist than JD. I'd argue she's even weaker. JD had foundations. He was trying to live up to, living out of his father's shadow. He was the son of fricking Marcus Phoenix, the fact that his mother had died and stuff. And, living with being the product of that new program to birth a new generation, but also still trying to hold his unit together here and there. Kait! Okay, they sort of had the semblance for building Kait on a path with the end of Gears 4, only to kind of have backtracked on that, and now it being that, she has to put down her mother, who is now the Locust Queen, only because I guess they didn't take her body with them, because... yeah, we saw Kait shoot her. Well, we technically didn't see her shoot her, but
actually, I don't think she shot her. She actually receded the cords that were holding.
Yeah, she was killed with a knife, but it doesn't matter. Carry on.
Regardless, we saw Kait quote unquote kill her, so I guess we should have taken the body with us so that it couldn't be reintegrated and brought back as this weird zombie stuff. So. And that really harkens also to how weak our new main villain feels like. Like, technically, for as far as we know, her existence is a mistake by the heroes that could have easily been prevented if they did the equivalent of burning the body in a Resident Evil game. Christ. And Kait's whole arc is, okay, I'm just here in the first act, then in the second act, I'm in charge. I call the shots. It's about me. And then she does her thing, which I don't know if it really helps because, well, the Locust Queen is back anyway. And then it's, I honestly consider the Desert chapter to be just mainly padding, honestly. I know we're technically getting the Hammer of Dawn back up, but like I feel like that could have been done much quicker than that chapter suggested. And then you have the final act where this stuff happens. Oh, but Del or JD can die. And I could not bring myself to care. At best, it would just irritate me if they killed off one of those characters, because neither has really gotten their chance to shine as much as the Delta Squad. Hell, you could argue that the Delta Squad still end up stealing the show in these games because they feel like they got more stuff done in their limited screen time, and Cole was arguably more entertaining in this last act than any of these new characters here. And I was actually worried when he may have died. Thank goodness he didn't, but still. If you're trying to get us to prefer the new generation of characters, you kind of failed. Foz is just a dick character who I guess is the guy who gets better, but I haven't seen enough in this game to really buy it, so whatever. Jerk with a heart of gold, we'll just have to take their word for it. And the fact that the reactions to the deaths, okay, yes, there are some differences here, but otherwise, they don't feel that different. And in a way, it just feels like the makers of the games themselves didn't really care this much, which really does make me suspicious and wonder if they're going to come up with some inane reason for them to both be alive and backfighting with the Gears in the next game, or they're just going to kill the other off or whatnot. Like,
So
again,
Jova, so what you're telling me is you don't like this game.
No, duh. Like, seriously, though, for as much as this game demands that we care about it, demands that it be seen as the new crowning achievement of the franchise, it does a pretty poor job getting us to care or register this stuff. Like, and like we mentioned, they definitely are very faithful in this given how they did it, because again, that is extra time, money, and work that's going to be put into making two different scenes, assuming they're going to follow through with this whole two different paths thing. So, I hope you think it was worth it. Oh, God. So, yeah, the story sucked. The characters mostly sucked. The music was, I guess, a slight step up from Gears 4, as were the graphics.
Well, Jova, what do you think of the wonderful world-building revelations of how Reina came about?
Oh, yeah, that was the whole battle stupid that we've spent the better portion of our lives complaining about. Which, you know, it deserved all of that. Seriously, I really do wonder if anyone was there around to think for just a few more seconds on the implications of the writing, because yes, it might as well just have been stated that it was a pedophilic, or at the very least a groomed relationship between a scientist and his test subject.
It was both, probably both.
Joy. And and let me remind you guys, effectively, they kind of took away from the gravity of Myrna's revolution against mankind. No longer is it just for fighting for the survival of her species and people, but because she had a hissy fit about her daughter being missing and Niles being an idiot and suggesting she was dead. So essentially, it was just a quirky misunderstanding that led to all those deaths.
Happens all the time.
Ugh. Oh my God, that's another way it's like Last Jedi. Jesus. But,
Hey, Pedro, I need you to add a ding to every Gears part where we mentioned that.
Please no.
Anyway, look. This game is a massive disappointment, and I'm not surprised that people didn't talk about it that much. We're sick. We're tired. This franchise is tired. People are playing the multiplayers of older games more than the multiplayer of this game. Something needs to properly shift gears, pun very well intended, and get better. Do better.
So
That is all.
So what you're saying is, don't be sorry, be better.
Yes. Yes, Kratos. Yes.
Yes.
Dej.
Well, my experience with Gears franchise is pretty much next to none. I'm aware of the character Marcus Phoenix and how he's practically next to Master Chief, Xbox's mascot. You know, if we ignore Minecraft, Steve, and all that, and the Bethesda and all that jazz. But people know what Gears of War is. But from what I'm gathering, it feels like it's suffering the same fate as Halo, as in it's going through. Is Identity Crisis the right word to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
As someone who's played the entire series, I can tell you that these games don't feel like Gears of War. They don't.
The magic is gone, and obviously they can't stop it because they're still big names. Maybe they should just take their time to figure out what made people like the franchise to begin with before you go guns wild or do anything great. Do anything that betrays the very foundation.
That's the thing. Rod Ferguson was in charge of these games. He's a guy who's been around since the start. If they didn't know of him in charge, what the hell happened?
It's one of those things where I get the feeling like it also has to do with the people that work at the coalition, Joe. Because the people in the coalition, if you check their Twitter pages, they're very what's the best word I can use?
Agenda driven.
And that's the first problem. They should really not have an active Twitter feed. They should just doing their job.
Well, I get that too, but it's just one of those things where you can feel like. Well, actually, I'll mention this in my final thoughts. Carry on, Dej. Sorry.
And what's the guy's name? Tim Ferguson?
Rod Ferguson.
Rod Ferguson. So, from my experience, from what I've looked up, video games are a very complicated thing. One man, it's a team effort, so one man obviously can't be the problem.
Exactly.
There are multiple different factors towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I don't know. Something about this game's plot just feels very meandering. It feels like, what's the best
Could it be
word?
because not much really happens?
It feels like it's a setup game. Like the Ratchet of Clank Quest for Booty, which felt like a setup for a crack in time.
Basically.
Yeah, a means to an end kind of story.
But this one, unlike that one, this one feels like it wants to be a grand scale game. That's like Kait. Unfortunately, I don't care about Kait. She's not an interesting character. And JD, who was like the protagonist of the last game, feels like a nothing character here. It's like, okay, you couldn't give him development or make him improve from the last game and say you're just pushing him. So it's like, oh, this ain't your story. Even though the whole point is that they're supposed to be a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus is just there, but I get it probably because it's like his story is over and they want to make room for the new generation. But the problem is the new generation also sucks.
And arguably, it's the older generation that got more stuff done in both this and Gears 4.
There's something poetic about the older generation doing more than the newer one.
Yeah.
It's like...
And I get the feeling that was unintentional on the writer's part.
It's just... the passing of the torch thing, if you're gonna do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the name of the black guy that died? Or depending on your ending?
Well, when I'm on my own Dej, I always save Dell if it helps you.
Yeah, but it's like, I get he's supposed to be the best friend to Katie, but it's like he's just there.
Yep.
It's because he was originally JD's best friend, so more or less it feels like they're trying to transplant him onto Kait without having the development that he and JD's friendship had in Gears 4. And
here's a smarter idea. Make him the heart of the team.
Yeah, that could have helped too.
I mean, supposedly...
he's the one that anyone can get along with.
Yes, Del, much like Baird in the original trilogy, is supposed to be the Donatello of the team, and yet we never see him do anything smart or tech-oriented to really enhance his characteristics. He's just kind of bumbling around, following the main characters.
How sad is it?
That's okay. That's how Donatello is in the movies.
How sad is it that...
There.
Pedro, which ones?
All of them.
I don't know, Dej. In TMNT 2 Secret of the Use, he did help the scientists come up with the antidote for Token Razor.
Okay.
How sad is it that, honestly, if anything, this game's story gave me more of an appreciation for Gears 4, which in hindsight, at least felt like they got to show off their more differentiating capabilities more so than this. Ugh.
It's like...
Alright. Anything else, Dej?
I'm just speaking from an outsider's perspective, but
sure.
I feel like this franchise does deserve better, and the fans should deserve better.
I can tell you that it does, Dej. It does.
Tio.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, I guess. Anyway, I still believe personally that Judgment is the worst of the titles post trilogy. This is still probably not on par. Okay, I would have said that I would put this on par with the first game, but there are just those 2 or 3 moments in the plot where just too icky to ignore, namely the implications down to the backstory of Mira. There was a bit of pacing problems. We already mentioned the fact that the game is shorter than it needs to be, and that also accounts for the delays. It's so bizarre. The game got delayed multiple times, but already the campaign is short. But the multiplayer also removed the microtransactions problem for a second. Reports suggested that the multiplayer itself was a buggy mess at launch. And Splash Damage, like I kept saying, is a developing company that normally in normal circumstances manages to produce good multiplayer games. It's also showcased a bit, thanks to Gear Tactics, the game that they mostly develop on their own with the Coalition ruling only support. So I really wonder what happened behind the doors behind this. It would be just easy to say, oh, they suck, they're incompetent, they don't know how to do their job or something. But I wonder if there is something more that we ignore of a bigger picture. I don't know. As for the story is clear, aside from that particular quirk, the story is technically better than the one of Gears 4. There's, like I said, there is progression, there is more revelation towards the characters, there is expansion technically on the characters, whether we like it or not. There is expansion on the lore of the world. We got some of it in Gears 4 thanks to the Tomb of the Kings, but this one goes a bit more on a personal kind of level, particularly also to answer some of the questions that I had, particularly how the locals came to be on a proper level. This is also thanks to the fan service, particularly aimed at Gears 2. It's very interesting how specific it is, like I mentioned in one of the previous parts. As for the characters, technically speaking, they're all improved across the line when you really get down to it. I mean, the existing ones, because when you really get down to it, again, much like I've been, for lack of a better term, more sympathetic towards them in Gears 4, it was still a starting point where they had to, have that kind of start, but it wasn't as strong as their corresponding of the Delta Squad in the first game, you know. So technically speaking, all three of them do receive some kind of expansion. The problem is that it's disproportionate. Dell is the one with the short end of the stick, technically. We do get to see more of him, but it's in a chapter tied mostly to Kait, and he's there to just do things on the sidelines. He does get more moment where he showcases tech stuff, technically, but it required a bit more, and potentially just killing him cheaply is not really the solution, as we mentioned, which I'll get to that also in a second. JD. Honestly, I think JD should have not even been playable from the beginning. If you want to make a game centered around Kait, let me play it with her from the beginning. Having to do the bait and not even the bait and switch, because the marketing did not suggest at any point that this was going to be an only JD game. If anything, just an only Kait game, you know. So let me play as her from the very beginning, and sure, make JD a bit more active and introduce that for the conflict. Which said conflict, the idea that it introduced this kind of retcon, which I wonder if it was introduced for this game or it was explained in a comic and the game literally had to catch up. We didn't even consider that possibility. Which again makes me wonder how much talking is between the people who do the comics and the people who do the games, if they're the same and all. We will see soon with the DLC that it is potentially the case, but I wonder if, going back to the Star Wars comparison, we have a situation similar to the one where the person in charge is not really that in the mood of having the two, sections talk with each other and coordinate, and sometimes one decides to do whatever it wants and the other has to, run behind it to the other to catch up. But that's for JD. Kait is the one that obviously gets the more development. They went through the run that I was kind of expecting from her. Again, the whole metamorphosis being presented at the beginning of 4 comes to a significance here. The locals want her to be the new ruler, and when she manages through technobabble to get away with it, they have to rely on the next best things and have a corpse that for some reason the Cogsport got or something, which it's kind of the same problem that originated the Swarm. In 4 they did mention that they tried to burn or bury the locals, but it didn't work because of crystals, so that's why they dumped her. But there was really no reason to do the same thing with Reyna, I think. I don't know. Which also, the fact that she gets introduced only for one scene as the new queen, and that serves just for killing, one of the characters of your choice, it's a bit bizarre. But again, I will get to that in a second. So overall, I like the character development for Kait in that kind of sense. I do believe some of her moments that gets quoted, like the whole "this is about me," gets usually quoted out of context, and they have a bit more sensitive view for the story. It still doesn't change that some beats are a bit cheap, like again introducing Uncle Oscar just to kill him almost immediately. Even the new Carmine doesn't get used much, to be honest, and we're mostly running fan service on Clayton. The old member of the team of the Delta Squad are all in character. Again, they're the Marcus and Cole, which again makes me genuinely believe that Tom Bissell does understand the franchise and just deliberately chooses the idea of having the personality of a new generation, which again makes me have a question that is also compared to a lot of other franchises that are having. How much of our judgment is actually genuine? How much is boomer talking? Because we have to remember that something similar happened to the Star Wars prequels, and while that sentiment is still mostly prevalent towards him viewing them in a negative way, a lot of more people, particularly new generation, are actually viewing them in a more positive way. So I actually do wonder if that is there is something from the big picture that everyone is missing and it's just happening naturally. It does remind me to
Stockholm Syndrome.
Not necessarily that. I haven't played the game, nor I have.
He mentioned new generations, though, so I don't think that would apply.
Memes.
Not well. There aren't any particular memes about the franchise in general, but to quote
we're talking about Star Wars or
Dej,
No.
please. To quote another franchise of it, Microsoft did a game recently. The villain of season 1 of Killer Instinct has a particular quote that I think can potentially adapt to the situation, where she mentions, "It's time for a reckoning. Humanity will be dragged kicking and screaming into the future." I wonder if a change is occurring naturally, but because it's so bizarre and completely in contrast with what the past was, like it's just a matter of the fact that it clashes, that it would be preferable for the veterans of the series if it was done on a complete new IP instead of having to be attached to an old one. Like again, I wonder if in one decade or two, a lot of people will view this game instead in a more sympathetic way. Not necessarily in a case of worse games will come and will say, well, in hindsight, Gears 5 wasn't really that bad. Or maybe, again, taste will change on everything. But for the time being, for this, let me get to the worst moment of the game for me. Again, the choice between the death. Like I said, it's bizarre, to say the least. It's out of nowhere. It serves little purpose because it's stuck near the end of the game. Obviously, because they probably did not have time to, branch that much. And it's something that the series never did before. If the series wanted to kill a character, they had the balls to just do it, And to be fair, we still do it with Carmine. Again, it feels so odd. Give me a second.
Indeed, no, I agree. I think the main problem with the whole choice thing is that, again, it feels like it was done because they needed something to make you give a shit. Carry on, Teo.
So yeah, honestly, I don't even, like I said, I'm so conflicted that I don't know which of the two I would have said, because from this game alone perspective, JD is presented in a more negative way, so you're more inclined to save Dell because it's being so much more, sympathetic and understanding towards Kait, despite disagreeing with her on some occasion. But if you know already JD from Gears 4, you will be more inclined to save him. But then you will feel kind of guilty. It's a bit similar to what I said at the end of FIFA 19, and to an extent also A Way Out. The game forces you into choosing a situation where I do believe you should have a type of choice to make sure that you can save everyone. Usually a game that does that make you actually work for it, and you really have to get work for it, but the reward is there, and if I care enough, I will do anything in order to obtain that,
If they really wanted to make it so that we can only save one, at the very least, they could have upped the stakes more so that it makes sense that you can only choose one.
Again, it also depends on what they were going to do on Gear 6, obviously, with this kind of concept. Like I said, they can go through a myriad of different directions. So we'll sadly have to see on that for the future. So in the end, my real question in regards into how messy of a story it is mostly what happened here. To me, it's too dismissive to just say, "Oh, it's just bad," or maybe it's just bad writing, like that people say.
That's why I say I wonder what happened of this game, because
my
Patreon.
My fairy tale is the same thing as with the new Star Wars trilogy. They just made this shit up as they went along.
True, but there has to be a logic and not just simple madness towards this,
I've said it before.
Kingdom Hearts.
If there is logic here, it's beyond me.
Like I said, it does feel like Gears 5 was trying to atone for Gears 4's sins, quote unquote.
We see something that I'm not really seeing, because aside from maybe being a natural, progression of the plot, I don't really see them taking jabs at what Gears 4 had.
Like I said,
was there any major backlash with 4 now?
There was quite a bit. There was a bit with how it was trying to be the whole, "Oh, hello, how do you do, fellow kids" thing. JD was not really that
I can tell you this, that it did not receive that much dissonance compared to this one. I know we mentioned that not many people talk, but we want to contain it in the context of the game. For the people who actually care about the game is still divisive. Either you really don't like it, or you really love it without potential reasoning. And this is what I want to understand. What people see in this.
When it comes to Gears 4. Well, okay, like Tia said, the reception wasn't as bad as Gears 5, but it was noticeably lower than the original trilogy in the sense where, okay, we need to fix things better because, okay, like I said, it wasn't like people hated this to the level that they've hated Gears 5, but there were notable problems, as we've mentioned in our commentary. The hokey dialogue, the characters just not being as strong, bringing back the Locust in general just being a dumb decision. Like, Gears 4 had problems, but Gears 5 feels like it's made those problems worse, when honestly it does feel like the effort was to try and make things better. Again, if the problem is that it feels very reactionary, like, oh, people didn't like JD, well, let's push JD off to the side and try and make Kait the new protagonist. Oh, people don't care for the Locust, well, let's try and explain why the Locusts are back. Even though that can arguably make some things worse in hindsight. Like, I honestly do feel like everything they did was what they thought was an honest attempt to make things better after Gears 4 kind of pooped the bed. But no, it just feels like they made things worse.
Yeah, basically. Honestly, Shiroi, I will say this to you. For as much of a mess as it is, I still find Kingdom Hearts to be at the very least fun to see where the madness goes. This, to me, either frustrates me or just bores me. And it's just one of those cases where it's just like, ugh, I don't really want to play this anymore. Whereas at least with Kingdom Hearts, I get to watch a madman and just, okay, let's just sit down and watch this madman go all out in front of me. Whereas this isn't even that. This is just, I'm just bored or frustrated when I'm not bored. Like this. But anyway, yeah, no, I can at least understand where Tara is coming from. I think it's more so the fact that, like, it's just like the franchise has no direction. It has no direction because they're trying to run on this new. Well, actually, no. I'll mention this in my final thoughts. It boils down to this: there's no plan. It's abundantly clear that they have no plan. They have about as much of a plan as Kathleen Kennedy has. That's basically it. Carry on, too.
Sorry. Well, okay. Where was I? Okay. I think I'm almost done with the plot. Basically, I get the idea that, at least on the writing side, Tom Bissell wanted just the series to go in a very specific direction that he wanted. Because, again, I do believe it's not a matter of understanding the character because the Delta Squad seems to be all in character. The only time that I see something different about it was in Judgment, and even with Cole. And even then, I can potentially imagine that it's just the way the writer imagined the character to be in a more somber, not cocky way in the prequel, but that's mostly just speculation. But the Delta Squad is just like it was in Gears at the end of Gears 3. So I don't even think it's Rod Ferguson intervening on that front. I do believe there might have been some kind of changes that some of these mandates might have applied. That I can potentially believe, but I don't know. I still believe that there's like a tightrope this game walks on, and it's not even one side of it that it's just correct. I don't know. Again, it's mostly something that I think. The bigger picture is not giving all to the other to everyone. I don't believe Bernd Jova is right. Probably what happened might help, but that only technically covers mostly just the development of it. I want to understand the thought process behind the writing, the conceptualizing of the character. Which let me talk instead about literally everything else of the game, just to be quick. I don't think I honestly think the music is more memorable than in the previous game. I only remember. I'm not talking about because Gears 2 had the leitmotif and it's not used here. But I literally, considering how mostly the sound effect and the banter take over, the only music that I was generally just remembering was one of the credits. This is a series that is not really too much concerned of having the music taking over unless it's a major cutscene. Because again, the things like the leitmotif of Gears 2 onward were only mostly used just for the cutscene, not really when Marcus and the others were advancing, like say in the Locust Caves or inside the Reef Worm. But no, sorry, this one is even less memorable for me. I don't think it's anything bad. It's just there, and I won't even remember it. Gotta be honest, even leitmotif from the previous games, it's fine, but it's also not really that humming worthy for me. So, but we still bother to construct around the IP that I actually understand. Gameplay is basically the same thing that I said from the same litany that I said for the rest of the franchise. It's the same. It's functional. It's good. It has the added stuff of Jack with having a sort of an upgrade system, which also connects to the collectibles that you can find, which is pretty neat. But the game still needs a bit of an evolution. I was playing recently the Resistance games, just for those who myself, and I think a good direction that you can go is through that, similar to the one of the third game, which also takes inspiration from Ratchet and Clank, as in a weapon upgrade system that is more automatic. The more you use a weapon, the better it becomes, and it unlocks quirky perks and stuff. The problem that seems to stem from the rest of the franchise is that the weapons and the characters are just balanced and are copy-pasted from the multiplayer for the sake of balancing on that. Nothing too much different added for a single-player campaign, which I do believe is the major point where the franchise should be focusing on for future entries. Separate the single-player from the multiplayer by having something exclusive to that gameplay-wise that helps, spice up the formula. Which also connects me for, I think, my last point, because I'm almost done, to something that Pedro was mentioning, the idea that it's using the trope, it's the same, so now it's not as memorable, because of the not much introduction new enemy types. You said, Pedro, something about these not being different from any other third-person shooter cover game, right?
My issue there is that, remember, if you go back to the original trilogy, the horror element is what helped find.
This I understand, and I also believe the horror beats were even toned down from the previous game. No, but you said something a couple of parts ago, something about that it strips, so it's not making memorable compared to the others in the genre.
I guess the lack of set pieces. I think that's the best.
No, but that's what. No, you were saying something about tied to Locust design, but whatever.
Locust. I mentioned the character designs. Like the new Locust designs are nowhere near as cool. Like, for example, I mentioned this. Reyna's new look when she becomes the queen. Now that's a more horror-like design. More of that. Rather than just the generic red blobs.
No, but what I mean is that I understand distinctly that you mentioned something about this game not becoming standing out compared to the competition. But what competition? Because at this very moment, I don't think there are many games like Gears around. Third-person shooter where they are cover-based and you fight against some monsters or some kind of generic humans. Because the closest thing that I can imagine was Warhammer 40k Space Marine, but that came out like 10 years ago or something. That was also in version, which I still have. It's terrible. But that's a story for another time if I have enough patience. So, no, I do believe Gears manages to get away from mostly because it's the only one in town with this credential. And I do believe, honestly, that the gameplay formula is fine. It just needs minor tweaking. That's all. Again, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. This is what the problem with what happened with Judgment. They tried to fix the control scheme for some reason, and we broke it. So there is that. So no, if the plot had not those weird shit, I would probably call this the better of the three coming out, but no. At this point, plot-wise for me, 4 remains the better of the three, and even in terms of characterization. It still has those flaws that keep it down. I don't think it still, makes it on par with the original trilogy, but I do believe there are some merits. It's just a matter of a lot of things being acquired tastes. And I do believe that it's something that probably will have a different kind of judgment as the time goes by. But that's just my guess. Next.
Shiroi. Go ahead, Shiroi. Show your lack of empathy for everyone to see.
Sure. Why not?
You can hear all the care has faded from her voice.
And not a single.
I had one fuck left to give. That
Wait. You had one? Wow, you already have more than me.
So tell me, Shiroi, what was it given towards?
The last of the energy I had for this, basically. So. but anyway, seriously though, not seeing the original trilogy was a mistake because I don't have any attachment. The characters that are supposed to be great are just boring here. Like, this is not like... I've seen, like, clips of them in the original trilogy, but as for my, now second exposure to them in the full game, they're really not that interesting in these two new games, like, at all.
Yeah, come to think of it, weren't you around for our Gears 4 commentary?
Yes, she was.
Yeah, that's why I said these two games.
Oh, I know. Well, technically, Shura, you've seen the main cast in their entirety so far. So...
No, what she means.
Yeah, that's what I said.
What she means is that I showed them the best elements of the best scenes of the original trilogy, and she really enjoyed those. And by comparison, these pale. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, it's not good, and that's a huge part of the reason I don't care.
Yep.
Because what is there to care about? The game does.
But Shiroi, Gears 5.
Nothing with them.
But Shiroi, this game stars a woman behind the chainsaw gun. It's a strong move, don't you know?
Yes. And God of War is allowed to be good again because Kratos is a son. Game journalists really suck at their job. Moving on.
But Shuri, we need you to care about our main characters so that we can kill them in lame fashion and get you to cry.
Again, they didn't establish enough about the characters or, introduce them, like reintroduce them to any newcomers because they would have been, for 4 and 5.
Hell, you know what? I'll say it. I cared more for Carmene's death in Gears of War 2 than I did this death.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It makes sense with context, but that was arguably the most heartfelt a Carmene death has been. I'd say sort of the fake out with Carmene and Free, but that was a fake out and he survived, as you can see.
Mm-hmm. Especially since, as I pointed out in the commentary itself, there was a third option. Just kill her right there. She was
or
right
at least
there.
To try. Like, if you want to show once that the struggle is in vain on that front, show it. Like, punish us for thinking that way. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
there's
same.
nothing.
Even if it isn't, successful, it's fine. Just do that, please.
There's literally nothing shown in-game to suggest that a simple knife shot to the chest would not have taken her out. Yeah, that too.
He was within range.
Again, rule number 96, I think. Aim.
Yes.
You should have gone for the head.
Yeah, but she literally should have gone for the head.
Don't worry, she will on Gear 6. Unfortunately, the damage will be already done, so they have to wait 5 years and time travel to prevent that from ever happening.
Oh god, can you imagine if that is actually how we solve stuff is with time travel and that's how we bring
It's like the other side, just gonna kill the one you didn't pick.
That's the thing. Despite being sci-fi based, the franchise has never strived a lot aside from some specific elements. So I don't think that would really be jumping the shark at that point.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Carry on, Shuri.
Okay. It doesn't help that this is not a genre I particularly care about either. I'm sure it's fine. Like, I trust what Pedro said about it, being a fine game as a game, since, he plays far more of these than I do. I just, in scenarios like that, I tend to look for the characters in the story to actually find my enjoyment, and oh boy, there was none of that. There was none of it anywhere at all. And there isn't really anything else I can say.
Indeed.
This exists. I'm not angry about it because I can't be. I have no attachment, but I don't hate it either. It's just there, existing. There we go.
Indeed. All right. As for me, I'm gonna try to be somewhat brief, because I don't want to repeat much of what was said. I'm gonna heavily disagree with Taylor. I absolutely miss the Gears 2 leitmotif. I miss it so much because the music in these games is terrible. I don't remember a single music cue from these scores. I miss the Gears 2 leitmotif so much. Hope runs deep. Please come back. Also, you have to it boils down to this. I have a question. Who is this game for? Is it for Gears of War fans, as in fans of the series since the beginning? Well, I kind of, in that case, why exactly does it go out of its way to completely eliminate so many of the elements that defined the franchise back in its heyday?
I have the answer for it's for the people.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it for newcomers? Well, a lot of times this game relies on stuff that happened in Gears 2, like some stuff this would definitely help you if you played the previous game. So it doesn't feel like entirely self-contained.
Maybe if we had an enemy that wasn't the Locusts.
I just don't understand who the... Okay, but then when you think about it, all you have to do is go back to the LA Times article about how this game... I'm not kidding, you can look it up. LA Times, Gears 5, look it up. And how they have an article where they say that by including its first female protagonist, Gears 5 brings emotional depth and even maturity to the gun-obsessed series. Yes, of course it does. That's who they want. That's the audience they want, basically. The people who constantly tout this crap about how we're not allowed to have good old testosterone action anymore because that's lowbrow or some shit. That's basically it. That's what they want. That's the consumer they want. So basically, at this point, I can only say, well, okay, fine. You do you, but I will not. But I definitely do not feel compelled to follow you wherever you want to go. To be honest with you, I have no fucks to give, not even one. And to be honest, it's just one of those cases where Gears of War has completely lost its way. It doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. All of the qualities that made it, while Gears of War was never something that would appeal to a wide spread audience like something like a Mario or a Zelda or anything, it had its own. It didn't need to. It knew what it was and appealed to the audience that liked that particular genre and that particular style, and that's it. That's all it needed to do. Trying to do this to try to bring in new audiences, completely abandon everything that made this franchise what it was, is not, in my eyes, never a good move. I don't care what it is. It's just stupid. It's just...
let's ignore that. All the same, it's just not even a good story on its own.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I know, Joe, but I just didn't want to go into it because I think we've already made that clear.
Sure,
It boils down to this. This game doesn't work. It's just there's a reason why this game was just a wet fart that very few people even paid attention to. There's no reason to pay attention. This franchise lost its relevance because instead of actually doing exactly what it should have done, which is just allow itself to end, Microsoft completely revived this and turned it into a zombified shell of its former self. That's what this is. This franchise is now basically dead and is just being maintained, breathing via machines. Basically, this franchise is not really alive. It's just living by a fucking thread at this point. This franchise should die. It should be allowed to die, but Microsoft refuses to turn off the machines and just let it die. That's the problem here. This franchise should have been done with free because, like I said before, there's only so much you can do with Gears of War's concepts before you start reusing ideas like this game does. So you really, yes, you can do some world building, you can, but if you're really worried about that, you have the comics for that. I don't feel like there's much to do here more with games. Like maybe we can do some more comics with other stuff, but I fail to realize what a new Gears of War game can bring to the table that others did not already, because there's just something, again, the fact that this gameplay is the same, like Theo said, is the result, because the gameplay doesn't even, like, they try to bring in the open world elements, but they don't even commit to it, so as a result, they're just kind of there. So who cares, right? At the end of the day, this is just a game that should not exist. This franchise should not be around anymore because it had its time and it should have been allowed to just retire in peace. But now we just see this. Now we just see it being completely destroyed, and it's sad because I still believe that this franchise deserved a good retire by 2013. It should have been, could have been. But of course not. Phil Spencer and Microsoft just had to come in and purchase this thing so they could zombify it. Thanks, Phil.
You see, I can't entirely agree with you on that front. Mainly
I do think
because
that it would have been possible to make a good sequel.
Yes, but they shouldn't be pumping it out frequently. Just like, all right, we have an idea for a game, then we'll make it. Not, oh, it should end, because there's plenty of franchises that's been going on for years, and like I mentioned, Ratchet and Clank. It's just like when things are looking bad, you're better off taking a break and think about, all right, what can we do to make it better?
Of course, Dej. I agree with that. Oh yeah, I agree with that, Dej. The problem is that it's abundantly clear when you play these games that they have no ideas. They have no plan. That's the problem. You know, not to mention, like I said, Cliff Bleszinski, the creator of this franchise, drew the franchise into a proper conclusion at the end of Gears of War 3, where all the locusts died, and now we enter into a new era of peace, thanks to all the sacrifices that the characters have done throughout the original trilogy. And now we took that satisfying finale ending from me, and what do I get out of this? Like you took that from me, Microsoft, and now I have nothing to show for it. Quite honestly, that's what bothers me. Okay, let the franchise ended, the story ended. Just let it end. You could let the Coalition make its own original IP. Why not? That's what they were making originally, but no, of course not. We can't have nice things apparently. So whatever. That's the basic gist of it. Gears 5 is a colossal mess of a game that doesn't know what it wants to do. It doesn't clearly at this point. This isn't even. Like, nobody knows how to make a Gears of War game anymore, apparently, and Microsoft doesn't care at this point. It's a name brand that they're just going to bank on. I say this, but this game barely made money, so I guess at this point, I just, like, okay, at this point, it's just no use. It's abundantly clear that the Gears of War franchise is never going to get back to form, because nobody's interested in actually taking a good look into what made the previous games good and iconic for their generation. So, well, at this point, there's just nothing else to do. I guess, like, I'm just done. See you, everybody. Maybe one day one of us will. I'm not going to do Gears Tactics because I'm not really good with those types of games. I'll let somebody else, if possible, take care of that. As for Gear 6. Only the future will tell.
See ya.
See ya.
See you in 5 years.